Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me this morning on J Slay Made in the USA, where we explore truth, expose deception, and inspire courage. Guys, Warrior MBS is coming up on January 6th. We launched. I picked that day because it's a big day for everybody. Everybody loves January 6th. So why not start right then? We're kicking this thing off, guys. So if you want to eliminate distractions, if you want to lose weight, if you want to clear the mental clutter, or you just want to get involved with a community of men who are like-minded for the most part and want to improve their lives together over the course of 2 months in competition and community, join us. Now's the time. What was I going to say about that? That's the thing. I get distracted. I get distracted a lot, so when I do that, I've got to reroute, I've got to redirect. And that reminds me of a story from this morning, actually. I've got a son that loves life. He has fun with everything. He's positive. He's like a lot of you that are entrepreneurs, you're go-getters, you're positive people. And what happens to people like that, to people like us, is we see something shiny and we want to just go for it, whatever that is. But what that can create is instability of our mind, because we're here, we're there, we're everywhere. It's why a lot of people that are successful also struggle with addiction. That's something I've talked a lot about on my channel, is overcoming those distractions and those addictions that can really hold us back. And I brought up my son because this morning, he wakes up and he's not really a morning person. This is my older son, and comes down to have his cereal and getting ready to go to school. And there's only a few things he's got to do. He's got to eat. He's got to put on his clothes, brush his teeth, have breakfast, get his backpack on, and basically that's it. Get out the door and get to my car. And it was like pulling teeth to get that kid to just put his backpack on, to get through his meal. I mean, everything was a problem. Even his socks were itchy. Mommy, my whole body itches. He doesn't have a rash or anything, for those of you who might be saying, what's wrong with the kid? But it's like every little thing he wanted to make into a big deal. And, then he began to just like laugh. Like his mama was like, Sage, put your jacket on, buddy. Put your backpack on. You have to go. And at a certain point, I got quiet because, I realized, okay, I can add my voice to hers and create more confusion in his head in that moment, which I know that may not sound like it would increase confusion, but I think he needed a clear directive on what to do that would wake him up, to shake him awake out of all the distraction and all the, the mental fog that he was in. And he got to being disrespectful as well, where she was telling him directly to do something and to stop laughing. And it's just like, he was just laughing kind of almost at her. And I was like, okay, this boy, he needs something to shock his system a little bit to get him back on track. So again, I got quiet. We walk out to my truck and I'm being quiet. He starts to open the door and I slammed it back shut loudly, kind of to shake him awake. I took his backpack off. I walked with him over to the side of the house so he wouldn't be embarrassed. I knew he thought, am I going to get a spanking? Like, what's going on here? And I just got right up in his face. I said, buddy, I don't know what's going on, but it is going to stop. And I said it louder than that. And I said, you're distracted. You've only got 2 or 3 things to do. You've got to brush your teeth, eat your breakfast, get your backpack on, and go to school. That's it, buddy. Just that. This is going to stop right now, or else you're going to get spanked, and it's going to be one you're going to remember. And the way that I said it was pretty forceful. And his eyes were just like this the whole time. And normally on the way to school, he can be kind of annoying, where he's always asking me, Dad, can I listen to this song? Just stuff to entertain him. And I like it better when we just talk in the mornings. But that way, on the ride to school, he was just like totally, on point, studious, not really saying anything. And, I wanted him to know that Daddy still loves him and all that stuff. So we get almost to school and I'm like, buddy, you know that your daddy loves you, right? He's like, yeah, Dad, I know. And I said, what was going on this morning in your mind? Dad, I was just thinking about everything. I had so much going on in my head. And I said, well, why were you laughing when your mama told you not to laugh anymore and to get on with it, to put your backpack on? It's like, I don't know. I was thinking about something yesterday that was funny. Here's a kid that doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't even, never really gets on the internet unless it's with daddy or mama to see something on YouTube. But there's a very limited amount of distractions, yet he finds himself distracted. Now, why am I saying all this? I feel like I'm giving away the game a little bit. One of the very first interviews that I did as a part of the Warrior Mind, Body, and Soul experience was with my own counselor who was a part of the program. His name is Monte King. He had a great experience. It was with the very first Warrior program we did about a year ago. He went through it, lost some weight, got stronger. But I had an interview with him that I put out to all the guys, and this is something that I do often during these programs. And I asked him a question that I did not know how he was going to answer it. I said, Monty, well, you know what? I'll save it for the interview because I'm going to play it right now. But pay close attention to the things and the wisdom that he brings. He's been a certified licensed counselor for, I think, 30 years now. In the Franklin area. You can get a hold of him at the website that'll be listed. But check this out. I'm excited for you guys to see this and to learn from it. So, Monty, I wanted to ask you, generally speaking, with men, you've been a counselor for years, right? I think like 5 decades.
28, yeah, 5 years. I'm getting close.
So it's been, you've been in the game a while, and you've done it here in Franklin for what?
23 years.
So 23 years.
Wow.
And, you helped me a ton. In my life, walking through addiction, walking through stuff that really could have broken my life apart. So, forever thankful for that. But I wanted to ask you, over time in this area of the country, and it may be true across the board, you probably see a lot of men that come in with issues, addictions, things like that. What would you say of all the things that are out there, whether it's porn and lust, whether it's drugs, alcohol, what do you kind of see the most of?
I think honestly now people are just have lost focus and they're discouraged. They don't have a sense of purpose. Men they don't have a real sense of why am I here in the world? Or maybe they grew up in a Christian home and they kind of accepted a bunch of things and a lot of people have not deeply questioned or doubted things. And I think it was A.W. Tozer. I might have been the guy who said, it's difficult to believe something very deeply until you've doubted it very deeply. And so they've just gone along and they kind of bought the idea that if you did all the right things, your life would go well. And then life doesn't go very well for most of us at some point. Yeah. And so they often come in and they just want life to go well, and they're not dealing with the deeper issues. So if you talk about addictions, you mentioned earlier, I think before we turned the camera on, that we're all addicted to something.
Yeah.
Well, there's a great book out there. I don't know if I probably had you read Addiction and Grace. Is that a book that rings a bell?
It's not.
Great book. It talks about the fact that most of us are addicted to double-digit things. When you really understand addiction, and I often tell people addiction is kind of the secular word for worship. What we're looking to give us life, and to whatever we give ourselves to fully is what we're worshiping. Well, that's what we do with addictions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, if, when you see addiction as I could be addicted to chocolate, the approval of others, certainly sexual addiction and Netflix or whatever, but there's almost an endless amount of things that we can be addicted to.
That's a great answer. I like that you took it in that direction of a general sense of purposelessness. What am I here for? Maybe a lack of hope. Do you feel that is because we have more knowledge available at our fingertips than we've ever had before. Like there's all these things that modern society now, whether that's disinformation or true information, that's up to the person who's searching. But there's so many things available to us. Okay. But you're saying that men are hopeless, confused, a little bit purposeless. What do you think's lending to that maybe the most?
Well, distraction. I mean, we live in an unbelievably distracted society. 300 years ago, there were so many less distractions. You were a blacksmith and you were just pounding on this piece of iron or whatever. And now, in fact, I actually just finished listening to a book yesterday called Stolen Focus. And it was really worth listening to. Now I feel like the guy's kind of liberal, where he goes in some directions where he assumes some things about like global warming or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But what he's saying about what is stealing our focus, and he gets to like 12 different things, but largely what he calls surveillance capitalism,
Yeah.
which is what all the social media things are doing. And one of his cures is like, I don't know if we could ever do this, but to ban surveillance capitalism and have a completely different model. But anyway, my answer to the question is, you know, more than anything, you know, C.S. Lewis was big on this too. That like if you read the Screw Tape Letters, you know, the enemy's primary attack often is just to distract, to just get you unfocused and get you slowly discouraged, you know, over the course of time.
Yeah, and I've found the distractions, and it can be from all just the fractured, you know, the distractions being everywhere all day long, or an addiction that's splitting who you are into two people. Either way, it lends itself to the loss of like a cohesive story of your life, because you can't think about the journey that you're on well anymore because you're fractured in all these directions. And that was actually part of the reason for this program is, you know, let's get our heads clear again. Let's focus on the things within our control, our mind, our body, and our spirit. Do you see that as a good entry point to begin, like say, doing something really difficult and deciding, you know, hey, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to try to get leaner. I'm going to change some of my habits about eating. Do you feel like that can lend itself to this clear head and this a gain of focus rather than a lack of focus?
Yeah, certainly. You know, it's becoming intentional instead of just letting life happen to us and letting, you know, all the things that are happening in the world that they're designed to distract us. To get intentional about, okay, I don't know if this is the perfect way to do this, but I'm going to intentionally address the issue of my lack of focus. Is a really good entry point. I want to say one more thing
Sure.
because
Yeah.
you started talking about getting disconnected, you know, from our story. And I say to this at some point to almost every man I work with is I memorize it as something that a phrase I heard in the counseling program I went through because it was a biblical counseling program. And the phrase goes, when a man forgets the story of God, he loses hope for the future and lives for himself in the present. And I hope everyone listening just memorize
Say that
that.
again.
Yeah, I've memorized this. When a man forgets the story of God, he loses hope for the future and lives for himself in the present. Because all these things are happening to us that are so discouraging. And when I forget that God's telling, you know, what Larry Crabb always called a larger story, and John Eldridge is very big on that too, that you know, you disconnected from that larger story. Your life is just discouraging and confusing and you know, wearing you down. If you forget the larger story, you tend to lose hope and then, well, okay, I'll live for myself
Yes.
in the present, and that often looks like addictions.
Yeah, yeah. And the world is beating that into your head that you should live for yourself.
Right,
You know, and we're
right
seeing,
now, all you got is right now. You know,
yeah, which, you know, that's a funny thing too, because there's value when you say all you got's right now. There's value of staying in the present from
absolutely.
a God story perspective. And I think C.S. Lewis said it in one of his books is that the only place we can truly touch eternity is in the present moment. You know, Satan's always trying to get you to live in the past or always be thinking about the future, but you have to stay in the present. So that's the last little tidbit I want to talk to you about. How do you delineate between a godly way of being present versus just, you know, all you've got's right now, like the world would say. So just do it, whatever that
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, and it really is about being connected to that bigger story, because yeah, the bigger story is it's in the Screw Tape Letters. It says that Lewis says, you know, the present is the only place that time touches eternity. So the only, you know, place these little vermin can affect eternity is in this moment. But the difference is, it's about focus. What am I really living for in the present? If I'm living in the present with a connection to the future, then the present, or how I am in the present, you know, affects things for good.
Yeah.
But if I'm only connected to my pleasure, my satisfaction, my comfort, you know, in the moment, well, then it reliably goes in deteriorating directions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Do you see, Monty, that people who have come see you and over time, maybe a process of years like myself, you know, I came in to see you and I wasn't like way out of shape, but there was a process of my head getting clear. All of a sudden I started seeing things for what they really were. And I began to notice, man, I don't feel good. I feel lethargic, tired. I'm not in shape anymore. So there was almost this like underlying drive that came to the surface of let's get back in shape again. And I found the motivation to do it. Do you see that happen with lots of people who they're improving their life up here and maybe spiritually and the body follows, or vice versa?
Yeah, it kind of can work either way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. And again,
That's our connection, right?
We're just quoting C.S. Lewis over and over here. But I think it's in the Screw Tape Letters where he talks about the fact that our bodies affect our spirits affect our bodies, but our bodies affect our spirits. And so when you really get in shape spiritually, you tend to want to get in shape body wise, and the other way around too. I think it's Plato that said it's the sound body, sound mind thing. It goes all the way back. It's something that people who think deeply about understand that our bodies affect our souls and vice versa.
You must enjoy reading.
I've read some.
You got a few books on the shelf. Well, Monte, thanks for coming in today. Are there any about this program with you being in it? Anything like fears and insecurities about the program or questions you have that I could answer right now for everybody?
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking to you off camera about how I'm maybe the oldest guy in this program.
I don't think. How old are you?
I'm 63.
So I don't know. You're right on the edge.
Yeah, one of my, I don't know if you call it insecurities, but just it's funny. It's on one hand it's part of what's motivating me is I've been on and off, mostly on throughout my life. Maybe not an athlete as much as just a fitness buff or whatever, but that's gone in and out. And I stopped doing P90X and Insanity and all that about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I took up dancing. And dancing, you're moving, but it's not intense exercise. So over the last 10 years, I've kind of slowly put on 15 pounds, and so part of what my interest in this program is just I need something more structured to get myself more regularly back into working out.
Excellent. Monte, thanks for coming in. Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you in the program.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
It's no secret. The world wants you weak. There's a coordinated effort by governments, media, healthcare, education, and more to destroy men of strength entirely. This agenda slowly seduces men into weakness and compliance. They become addicted to comfort, mentally weak, and ultimately reliant on the state. But embedded within the spirit of every man, there is a deep desire to be strong and independent, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well, to become the fathers, husbands, and community leaders that God designed us to be. My name is Jeremy Slayden, and I understand the struggle firsthand. As a former professional athlete, I found myself being led down a path of confusion and weakness after my sports career ended. Slowly, I became addicted to comfort. I was sluggish, out of shape, and disconnected from God. My spiritual life was in disarray, and my marriage was at risk. I knew things had to change, and after a big wake-up call, I embarked on a personal reset that transformed my mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. After my own personal transformation, I witnessed countless men trapped in similar circumstances, targeted by a culture aiming for their irrelevance. This led me to launch the Warrior Mind, Body, and Soul program. Warrior MBS is a 70-day competitive experience that has been designed from the ground up to unleash the strong man within you. It includes a comprehensive eating plan, a personally customized workout plan based on your goals, soul-building operations to strengthen your faith, and a brotherhood of like-minded Christian men who are with you in the fight. This experience is crafted from the ground up to help you get your mojo back. Here's what others are saying about Warrior MBS.
The program was amazing for me, just for muscle toning, for overall fitness.
Great diet, great soul building ops, great people you get to meet.
One of the things I love is that I'm surrounded by like-minded men who love the Lord, men who want to be good leaders, not only in their home, but also in the community for which they live.
It's changed my life. I think it has potential to change yours. I highly encourage that you join.
The world needs men who are strong, compassionate, and resilient, and it needs them now more than ever. Join me on this journey and become a warrior in mind, body, and soul. All right, men, make sure to check that out at warriormbs.com. You can schedule a call with me to discuss the program prior to ever signing up, and you can join the program right there as well. So warriormbs.com. Now, I know I kind of gave away the game a little bit with my story about my son and about being distracted in terms of what's the number one problem facing men in terms of a non-religious, non-spiritual answer. But I did not expect him to say distraction. And then when he said it, I was like, that makes so much sense. And I know for me, if I had to point to what's been my biggest weakness since leaving my, more dictated career by a corporation, and it would be distraction. It would be because I look around and I'm pretty positive by nature. I'll see something that I'm interested in, and I want to go maximize it, or I want to go learn about it, take part in it, whatever. And because of that reason, I can have 30 things going on that I, books on the shelf over there that I want to read that are now on my nightstand. Just the list goes on and on and on. And it kind of can leave you in this place of feeling very overwhelmed. When you get overwhelmed, what do? Well, you turn to something that will focus your attention because our minds crave clarity. I know some of the times that I would consider the best times in my life are times of great clarity. And when I got onto my son this morning, what I did was I provided clarity for him. He was scattered. He was all over the place. And what made him feel good was just to start laughing, even at the expense of his mama's feelings. And what he needed was to be shaken awake. And that's why many times clarity comes alongside of a painful experience or on the back end of a painful experience. That's why some habits in your life that detract from the bad habits in your life. You replace a bad habit with a good habit, kind of like Jesus talked about with the demon possessed man. That one demon has left him, but now he's been filled by a legion of demons because nothing good came in to replace the evil spirit. And Warrior MBS, again, I'm not trying to turn this whole thing into a commercial, but your mind, your body, your soul, clarification, decluttering, dropping the pounds, dropping the mental clutter. It's meant to help men do that. And I'm not careful, I'm going to turn this thing into a big commercial. I do want you guys to check out the website, to call me because I'd love to discuss it. But we want to declutter. That is just so important. And I've got a couple of Bible verses that I want to read on this. Let me screen share real quick so you can look at these with me. Oh, look, you're seeing where I created my thumbnail. All right, this right here is James 1. This is verse 5 through 8. Let's think about this for a minute. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all that he does. Now, real quick on the end of that group of verses, verse 8, he is a double-minded man, unstable in all of his ways. I was saying earlier about being like, what if you're a quadruple-minded man or a quintuple-minded man, or you got 30 things on your plate? It is so difficult to be a stable person when you're fractured in a million different directions. And just like Monte was saying, many times, addiction is the secular word for worship, and addiction is a product of distraction because, like I said, we're looking for something to clarify our focus because we desire that. We desire to have an object of our affections, an object of our worship. And when we're separated in all these directions, we really can't do that. But so we'll turn to something that will clarify it for us, and often that is a quick fix. Whether it be food, pornography, alcohol, whatever, because it does lock us in for a moment. However, with that comes what Monte was talking about. There begins to be a lack of purpose and a disconnection from our own story. I know for me, I will battle alcohol, and right now I'm fighting on two things: tapering down of Adderall because it's had a tug of war effect with alcohol in my life. I've never been what I would consider a drunk. I've never been that guy that goes off the deep end with it, but it's just enough over and over and over again to where the problem had grown. And I know like this thing's got to go. And when I live in that way where, okay, one day I'm drinking, one day I'm not, 1 week I am, 1 week I'm not, I lose that cohesive storyline of my life where each day, each week, each month is building upon the previous week. And I've got a sober mind. So I'm remembering the progress. Many times it's like hitting a wall and it breaks me down. It breaks down that forward progress, that forward story. And the following day, I will be so distracted by everything because either, slightly hungover or just not quite myself, what have you. So that very addiction, that thing that's supposed to help clarify your focus, is ultimately the thing that brings about a lack of clarity, which takes us back to those earlier verses. If we want clarity, if we want wisdom, we need to ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. And don't doubt, let's ask in faith. So I'm trusting right now that the difficult parts of tapering down from the Adderall, which that leaves me with kind of this sinking feeling at the end of the day. I'm trusting that that's part of the process, and that once that is out of my life, that I will find clarity and wisdom from the correct sources. Now let's talk for another second with another verse to do with wisdom. I found this one really interesting because I'm sure I'd read it in the past, but I'd forgotten what it was, actually saying. So this is Ecclesiastes 1, and let's skip down and read just the last two verses. So Ecclesiastes 1, 17 and 18. 17 says, "And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this is also vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow." So very interesting there. It's almost, if you at first glance, it sounds like it's saying wisdom is bad. Don't seek it because it's just going to make you miserable. But let's look at what Solomon is saying here, because he was supposedly the wisest man of all time. "And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. And I perceive this also vexes my spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow." So what I did, guys, was I went to the Matthew Henry commentary on this, and I found a lot of wisdom in this. So here's what he had to say about this. "Those that increase knowledge have so much more a quick and sensible perception of the calamities of this world." So think about people like me that do a deep dive on topics, whether it's Vegas, COVID, who controls the world, all that stuff. Many times it's tragic. It's like, really, that's the truth? That's not good. And for every discovery that they make that is pleasing, perhaps they make 10 that are displeasing. And so they increase their sorrow. "Let us not therefore be driven off from the pursuit of useful knowledge," or wisdom. So let's not be, just because that might be true, let's not be driven off from pursuing those things, useful knowledge. "But let's put on patience to break through the sorrow of it, and let us despair of finding happiness in this knowledge." So we're not going to find our joy, our peace, our happiness in the seeking of, and even the discovery of, these truths about the world. So Matthew Henry's saying it's important to know these things. We should be seeking wisdom about these things to know how to direct our lives. Solomon himself wrote right there that he also wanted to know madness and folly so that he could keep himself from those things. So let us despair of finding happiness in this knowledge, and expect it only where? In the knowledge of God and the careful discharge of our duty to him. So the one verse is saying wisdom is great. Go for wisdom. Ask God for wisdom with faith, and you shall receive it. Don't be double-minded, though. Right there, Solomon is saying, gosh, the more I explore wisdom, the more my spirit is vexed, the more I despair as I learn these things about the world. And Matthew Henry's commentary says he's not saying to run away from discovering truth, discovering wisdom. He is saying push through the sorrow of it, but don't expect your joy to come from it. Look to the Lord for the truth, the wisdom, all of those things, just like the previous verse was saying. So that's my mental mojo for you guys today on this Monday. I do want to end by showing you this. Right here, guys, is the Warrior website. Okay. If you're interested, if you're a woman watching this and you've got a husband or a son, this is the perfect time because we are filling up in spots. I'm going to cap it so we don't have too many guys. We're going to start again January 6th. If you go to this website, there's that commercial you just watched a few minutes ago. You can see this button here, schedule a call with me. You can schedule a 15-minute call. It'll show you, it'll pull up my calendar. You can schedule that. You can sign up for the program here. There's also an option now, guys, for individuals. If you're interested in an individual part of the curriculum and you want to do a 1 hour consultation with me with a follow-up call to that as well, you can sign up for that there. It's at a greatly reduced cost, but that'll help you get started in a certain area of your life if you're not wanting to join the full program. Again, the website is fantastic, guys. You can see all these different men, all different ages, all walks of life, that you hit play there and they'll give a little 1-minute testimonial on what they gained from it. There's before and after photos you can click. Not going to wear you out, guys, with the website here, but everything that you would want to find out, at least in a general sense, is right there. And I'm excited, guys. I'm excited to go along this journey with you guys, especially those of you that sign up. And thank you for tuning in today to J. Slay Made in the USA and the Warrior Mind, Body, and Soul channel. Guys, I'll see you soon. I'm going to start putting these videos out. Awesome. Have a fantastic week. Talk to you soon.